I work with senior executives one-on-one in the sense that I coach them, and I also work with leadership teams. So half my work is one-on-one coaching, and half is working with leadership teams. And the work with teams is typically stuff around purpose, vision, mission, that kind of thing. Whereas with individuals, it's coaching them to be more effective at their work and outside of work. I think one of the biggest issues that actually arises for me is, the role of the coach. Because what happens is that, culturally, we have this whole thing of the guru, and coaches, typically 95% of my coaches have never been in coaching before. And as they settle into coaching, they typically tend to see me as the guru rather than the coach. And it's almost like they're waiting for me to hand out some wisdom. I think one of the biggest issues really is getting coaches to understand in the first couple of conversations probably that, I'm not a guru and I'm not here to hand out wisdom, and they are going to have to do the work themselves, and I'm going to just facilitate them to get there. So I think that's typically across 90% of my work. I actually went online and searched a little bit and found Alison. And I looked at her website. I found that she'd done a PhD in coaching, and her thesis was on the website. So I downloaded the thesis and read it. I didn't read the whole thing, but I must have read at least about a third of it. But it was enough to convince me that, this is somebody that I'd like to explore further with, whether I can work with her. And so I contacted her, and, we talked, and I found that the chemistry was good. And so we moved ahead. So that's how it happened. There is this CEO that I was coaching. I finished the assignment now. And one of the issues that he had was that he had been coasting in his job for a while. And I'd finally come to a place where, he realized that he needed to do something. But, and that's why he wanted the help of a coach. But as I talked to him, I realized that he really didn't have the energy to actually, re-engage and do something. And it was pretty clear if he didn't re-engage and do something soon enough, there would be consequences in his role. Now, my understanding of being a coach was that I could help him if he wanted to move ahead, but it really wasn't my remit to tell him that, look, if you don't do something, there's going to be a problem in your life. And when I talked to Alison about it, I went through a couple of conversations with him, and I talked to Alison about it, and I said, Alison, it's not going anywhere, And I can see, clear as daylight that there could be consequences for him, but he doesn't seem to be able to see it. And she said, well, have you told him about it? So I said, it's not my place to tell him. So she said, why is it not your place to tell him? So she challenged me about that. And we had that conversation, and I realized that it was my place to tell him. So the next conversation, I did tell him. And he hadn't thought of this, And I said, put yourself in your boss's place. What would he do? He would, obviously he's giving you a long rope, but after a while, he's going to finally have enough. And, then what's going to happen to you? And you are in your late 40s, and, you have all, you have kids who are going to go to college, and, you have all the rest of this, and what's going to happen to you? And I think that left him extremely reflective. And when I met him again a month later, the needle had completely shifted. Everything had shifted. He had a plan that he was going to move forward with. He went ahead and did that plan, and things worked out beautifully. The whole system was thrilled with him. We finished the intervention about 3 or 4 months ago, and I haven't spoken to him for a while, but from whatever I've heard, there has been great movement and things have really moved forward. So there was one example. When you talk to your supervisor, and Alison is terrific at this, first of all, I think she gives you a lot of space to bring in what you want to bring in. And I think that space allows me sometimes to voice things that I may not have voiced even to myself. So I think that itself allows me to bring a lot of stuff. I think the other unique ability that she has is she works beautifully with whatever is in the space. So she doesn't necessarily work with things that are outside or things that have happened in my coaching interventions. She works with what I am telling her there. And she can then take that and work with it and move me into a different place where I suddenly see a completely different perspective, or I see myself differently. uh, so I think that's the power. If I look at it at an overall level, I think one of the issues that I always had as a coach was being challenging enough for my coaches. And I do recognize, that as an individual, one of the things that is a part of my personality is I like being liked. And so I find it difficult to be hard on people, and particularly in a one-on-one situation with a coachee. And I know this is an issue with my coaching. It's not new. But as I worked with Alison, I see myself. In fact, I've actually got to a fresh level of challenge. So much so that I'm wondering whether in one or two instances I may be challenging too much. I may have to pull back a little bit. But that's easier to do than to not challenge at all. So I think that's the kind of difference that I've seen in after I've started working with Alison.